Okay, thanks for coming out. This is our 14th draft that Pete and I have been doing together, or are doing together. Really excited about it. A lot of thank yous. First and foremost, we want to thank Jody Allen for giving us the resources this spring to travel all around and do our work, get a lot of things accomplished, and obviously the personnel guys, the personnel staff, scouts, all the way through the fall, all last summer, away from their families, up late at night, typing reports, taking people out for coffees, and trying to, use all their resources to figure these guys out, all these prospects out. The coaches jumping in after the season. Everybody's very excited about the 5th pick. So we have a lot of general managers in this building right now and head coaches, right? So, but everybody's really excited. And, with that, we'll open it up for questions.
John, how has it been knowing you have the highest pick you guys have ever had? Has it made the draft process kind of to this point any different at all? Or?
I would say way more exciting. I think there's so much more, research that goes into it. Last year, obviously picking, where we picked, but there's levels all throughout this, all throughout every round, and obviously in the first round, there's specific levels every year, and you have to evaluate the classes. So, and every class is completely different. So, being up there with a 5th pick, I think is it's just really exciting, and you have way more coverage and accessibility to all the prospects.
How do you feel where your interior D-line room is right now? For either of you.
Yeah, you want to?
Yeah, we got some work to do.
Yeah.
We've done some work here in free agency, and we're going to continue in the draft, and we'll just keep battling throughout, to put it together. We made some big commitments that have gotten us to this point, and we're really excited about it, but it has left us with there's a few question marks we got to get filled out, and so there's plenty of time to get that done.
John, when you're drafting, say 25 or whatever, there's so many variables in front of you. You probably have no idea how it's going to fall. At 5, you have a lot better field. You think what's going to be available when you're sitting there?
You would think so, right? It doesn't feel like it. No. It obviously everybody's focused on 5, and rightfully so. But the 20th pick is extremely important. As is 37, and it's so you're constantly trying to paint pictures and scenarios of what you think will happen and what other teams will do what. We're getting into we finished yesterday with the scouts going back over the board through their spring and how everybody performed in the spring, and so now we're getting into we'll have the coaches in this weekend, and then we'll get into heavy scenarios, talking to other teams, speaking with agents, and trying to figure out how and where we can acquire these guys.
Is the very top of the draft this year harder to predict than it has been in past years?
I don't really. Yeah, I would say yes. Compared to last year, I would say yes. But in previous, but besides that, I don't really know. I think there's just a ton of variables up there, a lot of different scenarios, a lot of different ways we can go.
I think it's exciting about this one is that you get the first challenge coming up at 5, and then we got a whole other one at 20, and then day 2 we come right back again. And those 3 big events of those early picks it kind of comes back at us in a hurry. Makes it really fun and a challenge and a lot of scenarios. More so than normal. It keeps us just active and functioning and having fun doing it. So it's the whole thing's pretty cool. We know nothing though. It feels like we don't feel like we know.
Five in the top 83 is pretty. That's probably that's the one thing that really stands out. Okay, we're getting a pretty good feel for what it looks like, and now how do we go execute our game plan?
You go through this whole process starting last year on going on campuses, and then you get the pre-drafts and you get the combines. How much is it elusive to know exactly everything you need to know about a guy, and there's always going to be things you don't know and you're taking a risk on? Or do you feel pretty ironclad by the time the draft comes that you've learned everything and you wanted to know?
That's yeah. No, we haven't wrapped up. Yeah, ironclad. No, I mean, no. I would say the variables of you never truly know what's in somebody's heart, right? So even once they're in the building, we feel like we can support them. We're gonna have a great plan for them. But once we get it, the night before the draft, button it up. The draft is all buttoned up. We know how we're gonna execute. Then we just move forward. Now the process of it. Pete and I were just talking yesterday. I think, my primary job is to evaluate the evaluators, and that's myself, Pete, our coordinators, the coaches, our scouts, our docs, the trainings, how everybody feels about them, and to bring that world together, and then come up with what is the fit, what's the plan, for the prospect, and how can we help them have a incredible career and how do we help them help themselves in order to help us be world champions?
When it comes to, I guess, quote unquote, character guys or guys with character issues, has anything really changed in how you evaluate that kind of through the years?
Yeah, I think it changes every year. Every situation's completely different, and you can never. I think we learned early on, or I did. I don't want to speak for Pete, but I learned early on that you can never say this is the way it is, and that's how we're gonna move forward. I mean, I think you can back yourself into a corner.
Yeah, we pretty much, the evaluation process just keeps going, all the way till there's no more time left. And we're taking in everything that we can, and like John's, doing such an in-depth search of our own guys and, their opinions and things. And those tend to, shift a little bit as we get more information, as it gets closer and all. So it's just ongoing. It's not over till it's over, we're gonna go all the way to the very end of it.
How much has things changed in 14 years from when you guys were first together in 2010 to now, whether it's how you work together or just how the process goes, evaluation, interviews, et cetera?
Wow, awesome question. I think early on, Pete made a great point right when we got together, like, hey, this is going to be the best marriage ever. We're going to spend as much time together as we possibly could. We basically lived in this facility for the first, 4 months. Tracy and Glenna weren't here, so we were together all the time. So learning each other, and then constantly over the years knowing, figuring each other out. I think that's very fair as partners. And I think Pete said, we're going to make this the best marriage for a head coach and general manager in NFL history. And so with that comes buy-in and pulling back on your ego, but you're still staying strong throughout the process. And the process of the draft itself we're constantly questioning that, right, and in a positive way. And then also the players and the way all these guys have everything that they're exposed to much more than they were when Pete was at SC, or I was in Green Bay when we had the youngest roster in the league for how many years. Things have changed. So NIL, trade portals. I think coaches are switching schools more often, keeping track of the coaches and your sources and all that. I think that's probably the. Yeah. Can you speak on the school, the players?
Yeah, the kids the players they're exposed to a different environment now. I mean, I was just checking in with Brennan, at Arizona, and it's like free agency going on in college football. So these kids they have choices and they're figuring it out, and there's a whole young kind of evolution occurring here that and they're early in it, but they're exposed differently. So we're seeing guys a little bit differently, and we have to continue to adapt as the times change, and that's what we've been doing. And we feel like it's very much the same in the overall overview of it, but our decisions seem more precise and more based on more combined experiences, and we've got so many examples of things. And John's just the things we were doing yesterday, you'd be shocked that you're going back and looking at all of the picks and trying to figure out how they're going to happen this time around, and using all of that information. We're just a lot further along. We've come a long ways together, and our people too. John's had a really good group that stayed really consistent for the most part with his personnel side of it, and so we're as good as we've ever been. This is the best we've been. So hopefully we can make the most of a draft that gives us maybe the most potential too. So it comes together at a good time.
We've changed some grades towards the bottom of the draft, and then free agency. We've tried to rookie free agency. We've tried to clean that up. We went through a period where we had a lot of guys on the board. We had more guys, so we thought that was more opportunity, which became more cluttered. And we've really kind of, the last several years now, we've really, all right, let's who are the guys that are true Seahawks?
I think that's maybe the biggest clear difference.
I think that's fair, right?
Is zeroing in on the personnel, the people really. I think John's guys, and that's why we have a fewer number to pick from. We've really, kind of circled the wagons in a way that it's about the guys and who they are, and as much as we can possibly figure that out. And it seems like it gives us the best insights to what we're doing.
Last year's class, I feel like that's what you really hit on most, kind of the people.
Yeah, I would say I
Yeah.
think that they put together a great group of guys coming to us, and so many guys were so clearly able to handle the process and the pressure of jumping in and playing, and so they took full advantage of the opportunities, and they had huge contributions last year. It's got to be our most, the biggest class we've had in terms of plays, from that class, and that just, gives us a sense of excitement going forward with them as well as the next guys. If we can, come close to matching that up, it'll be a great couple of years back to back.
There was a lot of opportunity too. We had 2 open spots at offensive tackle. We had 2 corner spots that was wide open. Nickel was wide open. So we were ready to dive in, and I think the coaches and the scouts did a great job working together and having the buy-in, and then having the guys really go for it with the development. Starting in that first mini camp, really.
What does the next week look like? What work is still left to be done for you guys?
Yeah, so like I said, we're getting together with the coaches Friday and Saturday. Sunday's a really cool kind of gathering of all the information that you just heard, and kind of a reset with the scouts and trying to figure out, the input from the coaches and what that means to the front board. We'll get with Jody on, I think it's Tuesday night, and show her what it looks like, and tell her what we're thinking and what our process has been, and the way we think it's going to go, and all the different scenarios. Sometimes when I tell her the different scenarios, I think she looks at me like I'm crazy. Like, okay, I don't know. We have 12 different things that can happen. But we'll do that with Jody, and then Pete and I, we'll have a good day, afternoon, just the 2 of us, and but yeah, like I said, speaking to other teams, speaking to agents, getting as much information and the final prep as we possibly can, and then, closing the doors, and then just getting ready for Thursday night to let it rip.
I think you only have 52 players on your roster right now, which feels like kind of the fewest maybe you've had in quite a while at this point. Was that intentional at all, or just kind of the way?
No, it's just the way our process looked throughout free agency. We were really aggressive in free agency this year, more so than we ever have been. And so it's just it's a cap reality for us.
Have the team reached out and expressed some interest in trading up, like coming to get 5 from you?
Kind of periphery stuff, but not that stuff really gets pretty intense. I'd say like next Tuesday, Wednesday, those are really the 2 days that people set up broad parameters for moving up, moving back at different spots. And then you have to be really pliable once it starts, because if you've moved, you got to be ready to move to the other spots or move up, and you have to be ready to roll.
You just said that the NIL and transfer portal has changed, that you look at players differently now. How so?
They're getting paid.
How does that change?
I think they can't help but be affected by that. It's a different world. They don't have to stay at their schools anymore. They can go wherever they want. And I think it just changes the guys. It changes their mentality. Some I don't know what the results of it's going to be, because it's only a couple of years old right now. But it's evolving now, and we're going to see I think some changes.
They don't like the way things are going.
Yeah. Coaches in college are constantly recruiting not people from outside, but their own guys, because their own guys can leave. So it just shifts somewhat of the dynamics of it. And so we don't know the effects of it, but we know that it's changing things. And so, for a guy to come in here and make $1 million a year, some guys have been making $1 million a year already. So it's a little different than it's been in that regard. So again, I don't know what the result of it is, but it's having an effect.
Is that an entitlement thing, or is it harder to
coach players like
Can
that?
be, sure, certainly can be. It's an enormous amount of pressure on the programs, to maintain their guys and keep them, and then also constantly be recruiting, as the different seasons arise, with the portal thing hitting and all. So it's just, it's interesting. Again, let's see what happens.
When you went on your selfie picture tour of all the pro days.
The selfie tour, there you
Yeah,
go.
It was good. You had a pretty significant chunk of your staff with you, Pete and coaches. What was the benefit of having that many people there with eyes on and being involved in those conversations?
Just different ideas, questions, thoughts, being able to constantly bounce scenarios, questions off each other, challenge each other, learning as much as you possibly can from, and trying to listen to each other, and trying to just constantly figure things out.
Yeah, max out the opportunity to be on campus, and have as many eyes as we could to see, because we're looking at different positions, not just the quarterbacks were the focus of it, but there's a lot of guys we looked at,
Were those conversations more in depth or different than what you get at the combine?
No, not necessarily. Have you ever hung out with Pete for 24 hours?
Kind of piggybacking off that, how much
Different is what you can get out of a player in that combine interview versus being at his pro day versus bringing them in here. Like, you have all these different ways of meeting with guys.
Yeah, I think they're much more relaxed. They're much more relaxed when they're in their own environment, and rightfully so. They're thrown to their own guys, or working out with their position coaches, or they're sleeping in their own beds. I mean, the combine's a pretty, it's a great opportunity for these young men, but it's stressful. It's stressful on everybody. I mean, it's late, long days, but for the prospects in particular, I mean, Pete doesn't want to say it, but like these guys they're 20, 21 years old, and they're sitting down in front of Pete Carroll looking at him like, holy, that's Pete Carroll right there. So.
Isn't that the way you look at me every day?
No.
But you can definitely see there's a difference in the
Yeah.
different environments, how they feel. When they get to here, I mean, our guys have a good time when they're here, and they seem really relaxed, and we really feel like we're getting to the essence of who they are more so, and that's the whole idea here, trying to figure it out, So it's very valuable to get them all the way to this point, but also get to see them in those other settings as well. So it's just all info.
And our 30 visit and our local visit, that the coaches and the staff and Stu and the kitchen, everybody just does an awesome job of like what our culture is. I mean, these guys are all sitting right here, and the coaches are hooting and hollering back there and having a great time with everything, and it's that kind of settles everybody down too, and they can see our culture and how fun we are, and then guess what? We're gonna go work our tails off after. So it's a pretty cool.
We may not get them first time around, but we're recruiting.
Yeah.
It's going to come around again. So, like as always, we're just taking every shot we can, along the way, and with the thought, like we talked to these guys, they like their Seahawks for that day they're here, but we may never see them again, So, but there is that loop, and so we want to make sure we make a good impression, and we're battling.
Is there any more of an update on Jamal Adams and Jordan Brooks? I know you guys got the veterans kind of back here now.
They're doing well. Yeah. The progress is being made. There's visits. I think it's this week we're getting with them again to make sure that they're making their progress. But everything's going fine so far, and very optimistic on their sides. They really think that they're going to make it, and so we'll hold a good thought.
How do you feel about your running back depth right now?
I mean, well, we're constantly, trying to address every position, running back, every position. I mean, I know we did some things in free agency, but and it sounds cliche to you guys over the years with us, but I mean, we're never truly satisfied, and it's never over.
You said Jordan and Jamal optimistic they're gonna make it. What does make it?
Well, they're trying to make it for camp. That's what they're shooting for. They're not resigning to the fact that it's going to take them past that. So they got the right mindset at this point, and we'll see what happens.
Is that the timeline the docs have given for those two?
It could happen. Yeah, I mean, there's some optimism that it could happen. We'll be conservative, through that time frame, to make sure that we don't screw it up by hurrying them along. So, but I'm wide open to they think they can do it. So we'll see what happens.
Did you expect Disley for camp too?
Yeah, Will's doing really well. Well, Will's doing well at this time. So he's probably, there was some question marks in that process for him, whether they're going to have to do surgery after they gave him a chance to recover. He's recovered, so there's no surgery in the near future.
When
when Jordan does get back for you, how do you envision mixing him with Bobby and Devin Bush and making that all work? And with
We're
those
going to
guys?
do a great job of that. I mean, it's going to be awesome. Yeah, we got all kinds of plans, and we have some variables to deal with that are really positive. You know, got guys with a lot of flexibility, and we love that. You know, that we were able to move some guys around. So, I think Julian coming in is you know, you wonder, well, how are you going to play them? We'll figure that out. We're excited about that. And Jamal has been such a dynamic player in his variables that he brings. You know, he's opened us up, and we're wide open to some different things that we can do. So. Julian's a very flexible football player. You guys might forget, but Quandre was a nickel, you know, coming up, and he's got all of that background too. So it's going to be hard to tell what we're doing with these guys for a while until, you know, we'll get zeroed in. The opponents will get zeroed in on us, but we're really excited about the chance of putting it all together.
John, how close are you to knowing like all the options you're gonna have for like what you want to do at 5, like all the if this, then that scenarios?
Not as close as I want to be. Hoping by next week, you know, we'll have by next.
Maybe by the weekend we'll
today
know.
Wednesday?
You know?
Yeah, by next Wednesday, I hope to have way more.
Well, at least by
Much
the
more clarity.
weekend we'll have it figured out. Right?
Oh yeah. Totally got this.
More protective about like information and not letting maybe what you want to do leak out during the course of this process because it's such a high pick.
Yeah, I think. What was
Have
it?
we been more protective? I don't know. Have we been more protective?
No, we haven't been more protective. I mean, we trust our people. You know, I say that, and then next week I'm gonna be like, "You get out of here." No, we're. I mean, right now, like we're gonna have the coaches coming in, so we're still gonna be, you know, fine tuning some things. So by the time we get to, you know, Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you know that the draft room becomes much more like off limits, you know, and so you do worry about things to a certain extent, but I mean we trust our people. We haven't in 14 years we haven't been maybe like twice we've been in a situation where like how did that happen? You know, did the information get out? Did it not get out? But it was definitely early on, like 2010, 2011, when we had, you know, a mixture of staffs and we're trying to figure things out. So I think we're picking up there. No, there isn't a difference in protection of thoughts and
But John-
leaks.
John, you know, you can hear him say every once in a while, "You're either competing or you're not." You know, right?
Yeah, it's a phrase I you know thought of several years ago.
But we're battling. We're battling to hold our information, of course. You know, that's where the value comes from. You know, when they don't know what you're doing. So, you know, we've been all over the place. We've done a million things and looked at, you know, million different scenarios right now, and I don't know how anybody else could know what we're doing because we don't know what the heck we're doing. So, I don't mean that.
That sounds yeah.
I don't mean that.
You guys have done well anticipating what the draft's going to be for the rest of the league and making your moves based on that. How much more difficult is that now with everyone that has a keyboard that can put out information and teams with their own smoke screens and agents and all the different rabbit holes people go down?
Well, I think it goes along what we were talking about earlier, like evaluating the evaluators, so evaluating the tools as well. You know, I think, you know, guys like, you know, Nolan Teasley and Matt Berry and Willie and those, like our staff, there's a group of younger guys that, you know, can evaluate what things on Twitter mean or, you know, Instagram or whatever. I mean, you know, it's not like, you know, just like once a week the Fred Edelstein report comes out and you read that with all the rumors now. You know, it's like, they don't even know what the Fred Edelstein report is, do they? Yeah.
No, but really.
Or Paul Zimmerman's like one mock draft, right? And yeah. Because you can have several mock drafts. I mean, I don't know how many 7.0s. Brady, how many do you have? None. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But addressing one of the parts of that question was, you know, how do we predict? I mean, really, this is John's world, and this is where we've been counting on it, the ability to kind of assess what the draft could look like, and then they go through the process, and then to try to nail it so that we can predict kind of how it's going. I mean, that's really been a great magic that John's brought.
We have really good meetings with our staff, with the pro staff in particular, before we get to the weekend, where we have to have a feel for what we think other teams are thinking and what their perceived needs may be and how they would view specific players that are in front of us on the board.
Yeah, I find it remarkable each year that it continues, the board kind of comes off like, John's figured it to be. And in that, we can sense what's going on, but, that's, we're fortunate to have it.
That's what we do.
How do you feel about your cornerback spot and where Trey Brown maybe can still fit into all that?
Trey should be doing better.
The cornerbacks.
Corners.
Yeah. I think coming back off of this first year of seeing Tariq and Michael play together, we feel pretty good about that. And knowing that Trey didn't have a chance to really contribute much, Kobe's addition as well, we're in pretty good shape right there. And they're going to get way better. They're going to improve a great deal. And they played pretty good this past year, in the first really go-around. So I feel pretty good about that spot. We're always looking to add, but that's at least we know what we got coming back.
John, in trying to predict the board, do you head coaches play into it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And how,
Yeah, where they've been, who they've worked under, who they've worked with, how they, maybe how they perceive specific, positions, values of the positions. That all goes into it, and I think I think our guys do a great job of working through their own process of what, they're responsible for their teams. The guys that scout on the pro side and pro personnel, they're responsible for their teams as the scouts, like they're running that team. And so they do a great job of trying to figure out, hey, if I was running this team, this is what I would be looking for.
John, you mentioned like self-scouting your own evaluator
Yeah.
and stuff like that over the years
Yeah.
as well. When you look back at the drafts that you consider to be successful that you have had, is there common denominators there and maybe some of the processes that you had that made you successful in those classes?
Yeah, the competitors and the people. I mean, I think that we can sit and evaluate, the strengths and deficiencies of prospects, and debate that, and the film kind of is what it is, and then the knowing who the person is and not trying to push players based on specific needs.
You said Wednesday night, that's just you in the room, no Pete for the
I
draft?
get mine alone time in there, yeah.
What's the most important thing you do during that time, that Wednesday night before the draft where it's just you?
The most important thing I do is pray on it and pray about the different scenarios. We used to have Rocky Seto here, and we'd always spend time together, and he'd be like, okay, before we'd start the draft, he'd say, okay, specifically, what do you want to pray about? And I'd be like, I really hope Richard Sherman's there. That sounds weird to some to pray for, right? Anyway.
What's it been like having
Sure,
Bobby?
not going to forget that now.
Yeah, I probably said something inappropriate there, too.
Just hope Rich is in there. Richard's there in the 5th round.
What's it been like having Bobby Wagner back in the building these last few
That's
years?
really cool. It's really exciting to have him back. He's really fired up to be here and be part of it and reconnect and all. And he's, you can see him. He's got new eyes looking at us, because he's been through another experience. And so I think his appreciation for, the time he spent and the things that we've done and all, is kind of coming forward. And so he's been really, it's been really good. Every time he pops in, he pops in like he always does. He's always been around a lot. And so when he does it again, it just gets everybody a lift. He's really positive influence.
Where's Eskridge kind of at with his whole process? How is he going to fit into this?
He's in the best shape he's been in quite some time. He's just coming back already. The guys are reporting in that he's doing great. That's good. He's not dealing with some issues from the offseason. This is third year. This is that year. Sometimes it takes receivers this time to really get it nailed, where they can use all of the the information that we have and let their ability show through. So it's a big opportunity for him. He's got to overcome some years of not getting a lot done, and so he's determined to do that. We'll see what happens.
Do you guys see Evan Brown as primarily a center or a guard?
At center, but we know he can play guard.
John, you said you anticipate like when teams going to start calling the trade up for 5. If they do that, that'll be like a next week thing.
Yeah.
In the event that maybe you guys want to move up from 5, would that be some like exploratory conversations that start next week as well? Have those started already?
Yeah, you literally just go right down, like, by division. I start with my guys that I'm closest with, right? But yeah, making the calls by division so that, we have broad strokes of what, parameters might be. Because, at the end of the day on draft day, you can use all the charts you want and all that kind of stuff. And there's a million charts now that different teams use. But, at the end of the day, it's, how bad do you want the player? How bad do you want to move in terms of moving up or going back?
When you guys are doing mocks and trying to figure out what's going to happen, do you have like your own in-house model, or do you use stuff that's like publicly available when you're mocking?
That's a really, really funny. We have a very funny story on that, and I'll tell you sometime. We did it one year, and it didn't go well. Yeah, we did a mock draft in-house. Yeah, because we had never done one, so we thought we were adding to our process, and it was awful.
Disaster.
Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you.